Now, speaking of being private, now your life as a celebrity definitely is not private in a sense, you know. Recently, you had a reporter report lies against you, and that is the reporter Michael Alonge. Now, we're not going to go into the case or anything like that, but basically it involved you, a woman, and HIV, or, you know. Now, when you heard this, how did you react to it?
I'll tell you something now. Let me give you a little background on how I felt. The internet can serve as a tool for the access of unbelievable knowledge. It can also serve as a tool for the creation of nothing but misery and pain, and people have used it to the full advantage many times, and it's saddening and it's weak to say that things like that still happen, and people know that you can seek recourse in court and justifiably get what you deserve, you know, in the way of justice. Having said that, when Mr. Alonge decided, for whatever reason, because I cannot for the life of me fathom what he was thinking when he wrote that, I treated it with the same degree of disdain I've treated everything else that they've written about me, that's consecrated around deceits and lies. But one warm evening, my sister called me and expressed great concerns regarding what they've read in school. She's an undergrad in one of the universities back home, and I said, okay, we need to do something quickly, what I like to call my family crisis management. Every time they read or hear something about me, I make it a point to call the person that is not only dearest to me, but the person that is most sensitive to news like that, and that's my mother. And luckily I took a test, a complete test in America a couple of weeks before then, complete test. I always do a checkup before that time, and I quickly sent it over to her, to my sister, because she was going home a couple of days, but it didn't get home. The next day my mom heard about it, invariably, and it drove her to points of misery that I did not think existed. She's ordinarily a very strong woman, you know, and one night I got a call after she had read my complete report, and she said, "Who would hate you enough to do this?" I said, I tried to sound light about it. I said that is what comes with the industry. She said, "No, Jim." And she calls me Iyke, but this is not what comes with the industry. I cannot, of course, relay verbatim what she said, quote her, but she said, "This does not come, this is hate." I've heard of hate and things like this. I've read all kinds of things about you. I know you, I know who I gave birth to, and I know it's a game. And I'm happy when I'm trying to understand this, and I'm happy when I realize just how strong you are and how these things do not one way or the other affect you. I don't know how you've grown somehow previous to these things. I said, yes, but this is different. She said, this is different. This is labeling you as something, and this can leave a certain stigma that can hurt you deeply. And I know you're hurting, you just don't want anybody to know. You've come to disguise your hurt very well. And then she started crying. I quietly stayed on the phone, and she cried for 10 minutes. 10 minutes, 40 something seconds, I remember. She wanted to talk, she could not, she just kept crying. I kept the phone on speaker and I sat down there, and she cried for 10 minutes. I felt numb. After crying, she said, "I don't know what to tell you, but I mean, there's so many other things you do so well. You have to continue with this. Because I don't understand, don't these people understand you have parents, you have people that will hurt if something happens to you?" You know, and I said, okay, that's fine. After a while, she couldn't talk, she was really distressed, and she kept crying profusely, so I turned the phone off. And right then and then, I could not sleep. And I think around 2 a.m. was when it hit me. And trust me, I'm not one that's given to an overt display of emotions, but I cried for about 5 minutes. So deep, I felt relieved, because I cried away my hurt, my anger, and the fact that somebody woke up and decided to hurt the person I think I love most in this whole wide world. And right then I vowed that his mother was gonna cry too. Okay? And you might want to say that it had nothing to do with his mother and everything, but it's just how I felt at that moment. I felt vengeful, I felt angry, I felt deeply wounded. And 2 years ago, I would like to say 3 years ago, because I like to look at myself as a man that's not only grown older but knows better and is wiser. I'll gently clean up my gun and go and find him. And you can quote me on this. There's something the measure of a mother does to his child, especially if it's single-handedly created by somebody, maybe out of ignorance, just viciousness, decides to go out there. If you want to hurt me, hurt me. I'm strong enough, I'll take it. But when you begin to venture into forbidden grounds, that is asking for a whole different kind of reaction. I've always been responsible for whatever I say, whatever actions I've undertaken, and whatever I've done in my life. Basically, and whatever repercussions have come as a result of that action, I'm prepared to take it. But you can't take it to someone that's completely innocent, and her only crime is to love her son. So I went through, I don't want to tell you what I went through, because he does this under pseudonyms and all kinds of, he hides, like every cowardly person, he hides behind all kinds of barricades to go and do things like to achieve his mischief. Around that time, he also wrote something about Indie that caused a major crack in her marriage. He said she was caught in a lesbian act with Tonto. And he went ahead and wrote something about Mike Ezuonyo as well. And he just kept going on and on. For him, there's a fetish to be known, a need for recognition, for accolades, and he just had to write people's backs on it. And he chose his subjects carefully, young, upwardly moving men in the industry, and he wanted to just completely destroy them to rise. And when we called him, I asked one of my staff to call him, and I asked him, what is your motive for this? He simply told me that something has to die for something to rise. I took the man to the police. I called the director of the SS in Abuja. I called a friend of mine that was a commissioner, and one or two people of high positions of power that I knew. And they expressed their outrage. People that read it. There's a senator that's more like a father to me that expressed his outrage and said this kind of thing cannot happen. I was more or less summoned to Abuja, and I went down, we sat down and had a meeting. And then they released, he was found promptly. The day he was found was in a national encomium office in Lagos. I flew down immediately to see him, and we picked him up, and he showed absolutely no remorse when we found him. He even went ahead to say that this was just the beginning. He was making threats when we found him. After a while, he was locked up. And I think while in jail, people tried to plead in his behalf, and at the end of the day, he came out and he said he was sorry. He retraced all his what he wrote, and as when we sat down in the office, and I told him why I went this far, and why I told him something that I'll make sure for the next 2 years of your life you're not going to earn a dime, because you'll be sitting in court. And I'll make sure that I don't want any reprisals but a jail term for you. It's the only way that I'll see justice being served for what you did to me. Because it was easy, it was a no-brainer. He said I'd been to Germany countlessly to see this woman. Thank God my passport spoke for itself. The AIG was there. I had not been to Germany in 6 years. And he said this person was a woman of Sierra Leonean descent, and he posted a picture of a white woman.
Sally.
One of the pictures I took when we had, I did a tour of Europe a long time ago, and I also brought my medical report, and everything was in black and white, and everybody was outraged. They asked him why would he? He said he didn't know what motivated him. He's there. He said he didn't know. They just does these things because he thinks he's in a country where he can get away with it. They just didn't know what it was going to, the wave of misery it was going to leave in its wake, and that's why he did it. said, well, I'm sorry, I was going to take you to court and completely destroy you. That's what I said I was going to do. Because we had all the evidence. They were putting things together to take him to court. Again, I got another call. My mother called and said it's all over the papers. And I locked this guy up. I was going to do things to him. They were saying because I had clout and power in the country, I was going to do okay. And that she also understands a young man. I say, yeah, he's in his late 20s. She said, well, what's his background? I said, well, basically, as far as I can tell, there's nothing happening in his life right now. And I was where his ticket to notoriety of sorts. And he said, okay, man, I want you to let him go. I said, what? I believe I did a double take then. I was like, well, what do you mean let him say? Well, I want you to let him go. I want you to let him go. I just have a bad feeling about it. You can't lock someone up. I said, I didn't lock him. What he did locked him up. You know, he said, oh, I want you, okay. Well, I said, well, I'm not the only one really involved. I have to give excuses to do what I wanted to do. Right. She said, well, let the other people involved pursue the case if they want to, but I don't want you involved. You've exonerated yourself, you completely alleviate yourself from the situation. I don't want you involved. I'm strong-headed. Okay, but yeah. I'll be my mother, I'll talk to her. I always do. Trust me, sometimes when I want to take decisions in the house and it's a no-no, when she calls me, because they're done. So I was more or less ordered to leave me alone.
She didn't call you on Jill for June?
She finds it hilarious. My mother has a reason. That's why she's the goofer in the family, you know. So I hate it when she's hurt.
Yeah,
you know, she's the one that laughs. She reads this thing sometimes and she's like, Jill, what are you doing next now? I heard you. Okay, we were together once. I visited her and we're sitting together and we read the paper the next day that I was fighting with a cab driver back in Lagos and I beat him up and he was in hospital and we laughed for 30 minutes. She was like, is that what you go through? I said, Mommy, I'm here with you, am I not? Okay, there has to be two of me. Apparently, I was driving an Escalade about that time and somebody with the same kind of car was caught in a situation around the Third Mainland Bridge and they said they had to be Jim. So the road, so she has a great sense of humor. She thinks Joe for Jim is just another well industry gimmick to get attention. She just finds it hilarious.